Today I'm going to begin by walking through the leave of absence functionality. We are going to discuss how an employee can request a leave of absence and how that request can be reviewed by a manager. Then we will take a look at how to manage the case itself. Now, leave policies can be set up to include FMLA, which is probably the most common form of leave, but you can also set up leave policies around state regulations as well as company policies. Employees have the option of putting in a leave of absence request through their employee self-service portal. So let's say that Ashley is pregnant and she wants to know if she qualifies for FMLA. She will need to simply access her leave request tool from under My Account. And from here, she can use the qualifier that you see here at the bottom of the screen to answer specific questions to see if she's eligible for leave. The qualifier will ask a series of questions that will display on her to-do list. So let's take a look. The red icon here in the upper right-hand corner of the screen will link her to her to-do list. The first question states, is the leave due to your illness, injury, pregnancy, childbirth, or adoption? So in this case, the answer would be yes. Then we will need to confirm our answer before we can move on to the next question. So once we've answered all of the qualifying questions, the system will determine if the employee is eligible for FMLA. So let's say that she is eligible. Now the employee would be able to enter in her leave request. So again, we can access our leave requests by coming in here to the menu options. And the employee would be able to select the reason for her leave. So in this case, that would be maternity leave. This could also be care for a family member or their own serious health condition. They can then select their start date and their estimated return date. As you can see, their request type would either be continuous or intermittent. An employee might request an intermittent leave to cover the time for doctor's appointments or therapy sessions for a serious health condition. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and select continuous leave, and I will be able to select the total number of hours per day. So that would be 8 hours per day. And then I can select the schedule type, which would be Monday through Friday. The employee can also add any additional comments from this screen. So in this case, I will go ahead and put in maternity leave. And then once the request has been completed, the employee can submit their request for review. Workflow can be set up to send an email to the managers to alert them of the request. So now let's take a look at how we would go about approving the leave request. So I'm going to log out of Ashley, and we're going to log in as Kathy. The approver would be able to access the leave request through their to-do list in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. We can see the request that we just submitted for Ashley, and we can review all of the details around this request by clicking on the View Leave of Absence request icon. Please note that the FMLA qualifier that the employee submitted will not prevent a request from going through, so it is the approver's responsibility to determine if the leave case should be approved or rejected. If it is rejected, a comment will be required. I will go ahead and approve this request by clicking on the green flag. And then after the request has been approved or rejected, an email will be sent back to the employee and the workflow process will be completed. These notifications will be a great way to alert the manager that an employee is going to be out for an extended period of time and that they will need to find a replacement so that they can keep up with their day-to-day operations. Now also, I do want to point out that you have the ability to modify the default workflow. So if there's a separate HR administrator who also plays a role in the approval process in addition to the manager, you can also add a step to reflect that. So once the request has gone through the configured workflow and reached the final approval, then the leave case will automatically be created for that employee. So let's take a quick look. Here under the menu options, we can go ahead and access our leave of absence case. And this is where you can see a history of all of the cases that have been submitted. So let's go ahead and open this case for Ashley. And we start within the General tab. So you will see all of the basic information around this case. And I also want to point out that you can have more than one leave category going concurrently. So as you can see here, Ashley's maternity leave will count towards both her FMLA as well as her CIFRA. Their entitlement allows for the tracking of what their current leave balance is and how many hours are remaining. We will take a look at how this will come into play after we've generated the time for this leave case. That being said, under the Time tab, this is where the admin can generate the leave entries. So once this button has been pressed, you'll be able to see the time as it will appear on the timesheets. Also, you can make any manual changes if necessary. So if we go back to the General tab, we can now take a look at their entitlement time, and you can see that the balances have been updated based on the leave entries that have been generated. Now, time can also be populated onto the employee's timesheet. Now, by clicking on OK, the time entries will automatically be added onto the employee's timesheet based on the rules configured in the leave of absence profile. So based on the leave profile, time can be allocated towards different time off buckets. So for example, maybe they're required to take their sick time during their leave, and then once their sick time runs out, then they will need to use any remaining PTO. Once their PTO has been exhausted, then they will need to go unpaid for the remaining portion of their leave. The confirmation message here at the top of the screen is a great illustration of how this will appear on the timesheet. So let's take a quick look at the timesheet now. By viewing the Summary tab, you can scroll through the future timesheets to see how this will appear. Employees may also be required to complete certain forms alongside of their leave requests. Form integration is a feature people typically ask for, and FMLA forms are an HR-only feature. The Department of Labor provides seven standard forms for FMLA, and we can access those forms here under My Employees Forms. So we can see all of our FMLA forms are available. So let's take a look at an example of one of these forms. You will then be able to add a new form from the bottom of the screen, and you'll be able to select the appropriate employee from this list. So in this case, we're looking for Ashley. Now these forms can be populated with the employee's information, and then you also have the ability to add in any additional information such as their job functions. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly scroll through this form to give you an idea of what this would look like. And so you'll notice that this form requires that a physician complete this portion of the form. And that being said, we also do have the ability to download this form as a PDF so that the employee can have this form completed by their healthcare provider. And then once these forms have been completed and finalized, then we can go ahead and lock down this form, and that will prevent any further edits from being made in the system. So back to our case, we're going to go ahead and pull up our case for Ashley once again. And we have the ability to then scan that form back into the system after it's been completed by the physician. So we can scan that in, and that can be stored here under the Supporting Information tab. I also want to point out that you can set up security settings so that only certain people have access to view the employee's documents, as some managers might not be authorized to view an employee's medical information. Now after that employee's leave has run out, then the case can be closed, and then the system will prompt the user for a resolution type. So in this case, we will select Back to Work, and with that we have closed out the case. Thank you for your time, and please contact us today for more information.